If you're looking for a business that's got every claim to be a world beater, then look no further than Unruly, the globe's leading social video platform. One of the forces behind this digital rocket is its co-founder, Sarah Wood, the Cambridge academic turned entrepreneur. With a trophy cabinet of awards to her name and a recent sale to Rupert Murdoch's News Corp, this is one entrepreneur who's written new rules. And guess what? They're all about Unruly. Sarah, you're fresh off the plane, back from Seattle, back from Microsoft. Tell us a little bit about that trip.
Michael, I am back from Microsoft. Thank you very much for having me today.
Thanks for being here.
It was a great trip. It was an interesting trip. I was out at Microsoft HQ at their Modern Storytelling Summit. Which might be surprising to some people because you wouldn't necessarily associate tech company with storytelling.
PCs to storytelling.
But one of the things that I love about Microsoft is it's got real purpose and its marketing has real purpose. And its big thing is all about empowering people and showing how their tech is empowering. And the way to be able to do that is to tell a story, make an emotional connection. And that's very much what brands are interested in increasingly now. It's not just about shifting product, but we see them using advertising to make that emotional connection with their audiences, with their customers, and build a long-term relationship.
Right. Now, you're getting used to hanging out with some of these global giants. You've got a new parent in News Corp in terms of working with a disruptive young entrepreneurial business. How's that going for you?
It's brilliant. We're really enjoying it. And when we sold Unruly, we didn't sell to sell, we sold to scale. And that's exactly what we've been doing over the last 18 months. So there's now 300 of us. We're in 20 markets. We opened up in India and Japan.
Good for the air miles, right?
But not good for the sleep. You know? No, it's been absolutely incredible and a huge opportunity. The reason that we did the deal in the first place was because it was going to give us unique access to some of the most premium, recognisable, trusted media titles in the world and be able to run our ads on those titles. So that's been awesome, been great for our clients.
Is there any cultural issues when you work with a very large corporation? I mean, you know, the trick for your business presumably is the title. You're an unruly business called Unruly. What happens when you're working in corporate structures?
So there's cultural difference, but I think innovation thrives on difference. So I've never been afraid of cultural difference. On the contrary, sometimes it's nice to have that little bit of difference because then you can see more clearly who you are and how you're different. So I think it's significant that when we moved offices a few weeks ago, we didn't move into the News UK building, we moved into a new Unruly office.
So to keep your culture, keep your independence.
To keep our playfulness, our entrepreneurial spirit, and our tech vibe as well. So the new office is really fun. It's got an augmented reality bouldering wall because bouldering is the new ping pong for techies. So all our devs go bouldering at lunchtimes, and we thought, well, hey, when we move into the new office, why not have a bouldering wall?
Very quickly for the uninitiated, tell us about bouldering.
Bouldering is climbing, except it's horizontal instead of vertical. So you don't need the high ceilings.
So you can't fall off as well.
Not so much of a health and safety problem.
Right, okay. Now, so you're also working with Rebecca Brooke, big personality, well known in the UK. Tell us a little bit about, on a personal basis, what's it like going from, I guess, running your own ship with other founders to working with these sort of titans of industry?
Well, the media industry is full of big personalities, so that's nothing new, and I enjoy working with big personalities. They've always got something to say, there's never a dull moment. In particular, though, working with Rebecca is incredible. She's passionate, she's driven, she's so smart, she's very kind, a very generous person to work with. And one of the things that I've been so impressed with is that she gives us a lot of space. She gives us the space to be ourselves. She trusts us to do the job. We know digital, we know video, and the fact that
so
she
there's a
respects
connection.
that. Oh yeah, absolutely.
And they get you as a tribe, right?
Yeah, they get us as a tribe, and this is one of the reasons that they bought us. It wasn't just for our technology; it was for our people, it was for our culture, it was for infusing that digital vibe into their overall business.
Well, let's go right the way back. I mean, you had quite a sort of momentous moment, sort of quite caught up in the whole 7/7 tragedy, and that was part of your I guess, trigger for starting Unruly. Tell us a little bit about what happened.
So I was an academic back in 2005, and I was having a great time. I was lecturing, I was a Leverhulme Fellow, and I was lecturing at Sussex University in early American literature, which was my passion. All these old texts. And it was so much fun, and I loved it, but it was 3 hours away. So it wasn't great because I had a family in London and I was working in Sussex, and it broke my heart every week to leave my kids. But it's quite hard to make the change. And it was only when 7/7 happened and 55 people in London didn't get home from work that day. I was very lucky. I was late going into work, so didn't get to King's Cross, was evacuated from the station, made it home safely. But it was a close enough miss for me that I spent the rest of the day thinking, if this was my last day, was this the way I wanted to spend it? Could I be doing more? Should I be doing more? And at that point, I realised that actually I wanted to make some changes.
And life is short. You have to make the most. Right.
There's nothing worse than having regrets. And I'm really lucky, I think, to be able to say, I wouldn't do anything differently. And I always want to be able to say, I wouldn't have done anything differently. But if you want to be able to say that, then you do need to make changes and course correct along the route.
So you cast yourself into Unruly. Where did the name come from?
We had loads of names. I remember laying them all out on the table. We had hot dog, we had coast, we had toast. We had so many names. But Unruly was the one that stuck because the landscape, the media landscape, was so unruly. And it continues to be unruly. If you think back to 2005, this was a moment when the internet was really changing. And no longer was it just about retrieving information, but it was a place where people came to share information, to share views, to share content, to share their videos, their pictures, their life stories. And it was becoming much less the preserve of huge media organisations and much more a place where everybody could come along and submit their ideas and share their ideas.
So you had a good idea, but take yourself right the way back. How vulnerable did you feel? How much of a sense did you actually think either I've got a world beater on my hands or this could all be over in a few weeks?
Well, back in the very beginning, you've got nothing to lose. So in the very early days, the first 12, 18 months, we were just iterating ideas. The video distribution platform wasn't the first idea. We had a comedy portal called eatmyhamster.com. Eatmyhamster.com, named for an infamous Sun headline.
Live, exactly. Preparing you for your future buyer.
Who would have known?
Freddie Starr could have been with you.
I know, it's insane. And so that was fun, and we learned a lot from doing that. And we were constantly trying new ideas, trying and launching, and then sunsetting, launching and sunsetting. And then about a year after we started the business, we launched the distribution platform. So there was never kind of one moment in those early days when we thought, that's it, we've got a world beater. And in fact, I would say at no point do you ever think, that's it, we've got
until
it nailed.
The job is done.
Yeah.
But presumably a big part of your business was experimental,
Yes.
new
And
ideas, still is.
Yeah.
But in those early days, how were you funding the business? Was it yourselves or were
Yes,
there?
it was myself and two founders, Scott Button, Matt Cook. We're self-funded, bootstrapping, knew we had a runway of about 18 months, which is one of the reasons we were cycling so quickly through the ideas, because we really needed to find an idea that made some money before we ran out of money.
Yeah, and you kept that going, but were there any sort of near misses, do you think, in the business story? Were there moments where you think, this isn't going to work?
What I found is we always just made it. And after that happened a few times, I started to get the confidence that we would just make it. And whenever we just needed to start getting some paying clients, otherwise we'd have to pack up, we got the BBC, they were our first client. They wanted to know what their most shared videos were that they'd ever released onto the web. And whenever we just needed a big client win to be able to carry on, we just got the big client win in time. So there was a series of near misses. And when you've had a few near misses, then that gives you a little bit more confidence to carry on. Do
you get a sense that when the BBC is your first client, do you get a sense that a large institutional buyer, when they're buying from you, what are they looking for? What are the kind of like the magic sort of triggers that a very, I presume, conservative buyer finds in a business like Unruly?
Well, I would say the BBC is very interesting and is itself incredibly innovative. And there's BBC Labs that works very closely with lots of startups. So it really fosters an entrepreneurial culture around it. It's built an ecosystem of fantastic startups. So the BBC potentially, you could say, is quite unusual. It looks for innovation. It looks for something that's new. One of the things I find that's a bit of a waste, though, is often big corporations will look to startups for a small, neat, cool thing, but they don't look to startups to solve their biggest problem. And that's where I think corporations make the big mistake. You need to be looking to the smaller startups to solve your biggest problems.
For the bigger problems. Yeah. To what degree do they buy you and other sort of people in this sort of set? I mean, is it just the technology, or do they actually buy into the founders and other sort of leaders in the business that they meet?
I think it's a combination. It's not enough to be a founder, come along, and chat the chat, it's really important that you have an idea that will help solve a serious problem, because these are busy people.
Yeah.
And I know as we were growing Unruly, we were talking to CMOs, we're talking to marketing directors who have hundreds of people coming at them trying to sell them things. The reason they wanted to talk to Unruly, the reason they've continued buying with Unruly, is because we solve a genuine problem. They don't just want to reach people, they want to move people.
Now you've grown the business in London. I mean, is London, could it have been anywhere else? Could it have been in New York, Los Angeles? I mean, did London offer you something special when you were starting the business?
When we were starting out in 2006, London offered us cheap rents and plentiful coffee.
Where?
Well, back then it was in the east. It was
That's
on,
right,
it was on
because you're at
Brick
the bottom
Lane.
of Brick Lane, exactly right.
Yeah, and we haven't really moved since then. The rents have moved.
The rents have gone up.
Yeah, the rents are phenomenally high now compared to what they were. But it's always been a creative area, the East End.
But you were one of the pioneering generation of businesses in Shoreditch, right?
We were. When we started out, there weren't so many businesses, but there were the beginnings of a fantastic, innovative business culture. There were already a lot of design businesses there, fashion businesses because of the fashion school. And I think that the East of London in particular has always welcomed creatives from all over the world. And what I've loved is that sense of diversity, creativity. Anything goes. You can wear anything you want and no one will give you a second glance when you're walking down Brick Lane. And I really like that. It's liberating. And once you're in a place where you feel liberated, that's when you start doing your best work.
Is anything changing now in a kind of, as we approach Brexit and the triggering of Article 50? Is there anything about that fragile cosmopolitan culture that really we need to sort of be wary of, do you think, in terms of what we might lose or indeed what we could continue to preserve?
Well, we need to protect our diverse culture. It's so valuable. It's intangible sometimes, but it's the reason that lots of our staff want to work with us, because they want to be in a city which has people from all around the world, cuisines of all different types, all kinds of entertainment. You just feel that you see the world when you're here in London. And that is exciting, exhilarating, invigorating, very stimulating. And for a young workforce, that's absolutely what they need.
And when you're in other cities around the world, do you get the sense that London is still seen as a very ambitious place to grow a business?
Absolutely, yes. And I think that the Mayor, Sadiq Khan, has had a lot to do with that. And the messaging around London is open has been very positive. He
actually said, Sadiq said that female-led tech businesses were, I think he said that they were 35% more successful.
That's right.
Is that sort of, why is that? What's the female magic that comes into a tech environment?
Well, he was saying that in the context of the fact that female-led businesses are underinvested in. And it's much more difficult for female entrepreneurs to secure funding than it is for their male counterparts, which is paradoxical because women do end up running better businesses. I don't know. I don't want to go there without kind of stereotyping. I mean,
I love those stats, though. I wonder how they're...
Well, what it tells you is that there's a huge untapped resource right here in London where you have fantastic female entrepreneurs who are growing businesses. So if you're an investor looking to invest, why wouldn't you be approaching those women?
Because you often think that tech might be where the big breakthrough in terms of female founders might be actually coming. You see a lot of the Catherine Parsons and other people that are, I guess, coming as part of the next generation of female sort of success stories.
Yes.
Are there enough of them, and could we be doing more to stimulate it?
Yeah. So you can never have too many female entrepreneurs. I would love to see more of them. There are already lots more than there were 5-10 years ago, that's for sure. And part of the reason for that is because we have this incredible ecosystem here in London, a very supportive, community-driven ecosystem. Lots of events, was at some fantastic events on International Women's Day this week. And they're the kind of events that drive a community, that drive a sense of collective purpose, and really do encourage young women to go into business and become entrepreneurs, give them the confidence that they can succeed, because a lot of this isn't about an ability gap, it's about a confidence gap. That said, there is a skills gap, and there aren't enough women coming through tech, there aren't enough women doing engineering degrees, computer science degrees, and then even when they do, they don't necessarily enter the STEM workforce. So there is a real issue there.
You and other female founders are important role models for women thinking about this for their potential futures. What's the message for them?
You can't overestimate the importance of a role model. So important. If you can't see it, you can't be it. And I was shocked last week. It was International Women's Day. There were some great celebratory events going on. But Sadiq Khan mentioned a really worrying stat, which is 2 out of 3 girls can't identify a role model. Now that's shocking, because if 2 out of 3 girls can't look to someone and think, yes, I can see it, I can be it, then that can be a real glass ceiling, a real limitation. So I think it is important that there's plenty of role models out there. It doesn't just need to be business women, doesn't need to be entrepreneurs. I think for girls, for women, often the best role models are people that we know well, they're the people that sit next to us at work. There are mums, there are friends, there are sisters, but it's so important to have those role models.
Do you get a sense that for younger people coming into the workplace now that quite a lot of these issues are being worked through, or are there still a lot of glass ceilings in the way that we have to sort of break through?
What I think we have at the moment is a very patchy kind of business culture. So I think there are some businesses, and I would count Unruly in this number, that focus and think very carefully about diversity. And we have great stats in terms of 44% of our board is female, 46% of our people managers are female, 48% of our people female. But we're an outlier in tech. So I think tech companies don't do a great job of having a more diverse workforce. 25% of tech companies don't have anyone on their senior board, which I think is absolutely shocking. And then large corporates also struggle. So I think we see a patchy picture, but what I do believe is that when you have female entrepreneurs creating companies, creating cultures, you're much more likely to have women who come in and rise to the top in those businesses.
Right, now you, as well as being around the world working, you're also back to lecturing a little bit at Cambridge, I see. Now, Lolitics, what is it?
So I've been lecturing. I run a course there. It's a master's course called Mashups, Memes, and Lolitics: the transformation of screen cultures. I've been doing that for a few years.
But what is Lolitics?
What is Lolitics? So Lolitics, you can see it in a couple of different ways. Lolitics is the ability of humour to affect political change. And there are several theories around
Plenty
this.
of laughs going on at the moment.
Well, I know there's no shortage of things to smile at. Or cry at. The other thing about Lolitics is to do with lolcats, and the idea is that as long as you have platforms where people share pictures of cats, then those platforms can also be Trojan horses for more radical political materials.
So cats are the future
so cats are
revolutionaries.
The internet is just not made of cats, but the internet is dependent on cats. The free internet is dependent on cats because
cats of the world unite.
Because if you can't share your pictures of cats, then the people are outraged. So this is where you have, and there is negatives and positives to this, but you have kind of radical groups can share their images on social platforms and feel quite safe there because those platforms won't get shut down. Because if you stop people from sharing pictures of their favourite cat, heaven help you, no government would do that.
Save the cats. Now, if you were starting again, if we could wave a magic wand, give you the chance to start today, what would yourself today tell, or what would your previous self tell you about yourself today?
I would say don't worry. Would be the first thing that I would tell myself. I spent a lot of energy, I always have spent a lot of energy worrying about what might come next. And it's energy misspent because it's never positive energy. It never gets you anywhere
what's going to happen, right?
Exactly. And what I found over the years being an entrepreneur is anything can happen. And I think lots of entrepreneurs oscillate from thinking, we're going to be the biggest and the best. And then 3 seconds later, we're going to be the worst and we're going to fail.
That's all in the same meeting.
It's in the same meeting. It's in the same heartbeat. You hold these two positions in your head because entrepreneurs think that anything is possible, for the better, for the worse. You could be on the street tomorrow. You could be in Buckingham Palace tomorrow. You never know where you're going to be in your head as an entrepreneur.
The brilliantly optimistic Sarah Woods, thank you very much.
Thanks, Michael.
Well, Unruly is a stunning tale of success. No doubt about that. And I think there's a lesson here for anyone interested in growing an ambitious business. Because what's clear is that even though Unruly is a tech story, it's also a team story, a people business. And if you're looking for the formula, I think it's that evident sense of purpose, fun, and that driving quest to make a difference that it's all about. And it's magic. The magic of the Shoreditch superstar.